That looks very much like a broken valve spring to me.
Oh, hello and welcome back to Red Fox Classics. I'm standing in front of the Herald 1360 that got run into about a month and a half ago, and we've just completed all of the little bits of rust repair that needed doing before it could go off to have the actual accident repair done, because otherwise there would have been putting paint over or rot, or I would have had to got somebody else to do it for me, and I can and I wanted to, so that's all done. Then we got the door skinned, because as it's going for paint I wanted to have that dealt with. It's a spare one, this one, so that's all complete. All the bodywork's done. So if you've been following the channel from before the accident, then you'll have seen I did a whole lot of work on the front end, on the bulkhead, and I rebuilt the engine. So when the car was run into, I had just got to the point where I was going to consider the engine to be run in and do the little bits like retorque the head, adjust the valves, and I wanted to do a compression check just to see how it all was. And I thought it would be also interesting to compare that to the Spitfire, which has nominally exactly the same engine, but in a much more worn condition. So today's going to be a quick one. We'll go through all of that, and then that's going to be the last we see of the Herald for a while, because it's going to go off and have the rest of the repairs done and then come back all nice and shiny. And yeah, I know at this point I would also change the oil normally, but given it's going to go and sit and wait to be repaired and painted, I figure I may as well do that when I get it back, and then we just start driving on fresh oil rather than fresh oil just sitting there for a while. Anyway, let's get the bonnet open and have a look. Now, last I checked my plugs, they were looking okay, so hopefully that's still the case. Yeah, been quite nice and biscuity. Oh no. Something interesting here.
That looks very much like a broken valve spring to me. Am I going to be able to do that with the head in situ? I don't know. And has it caused any more damage? Okay, so it looks like there's at least some good news in that it does not look like there are pieces of valve spring. It looks like it is cleanly broken, and both the two large chunks which are here, which are visible. So I don't think I'm going to have to go hunting through the engine to find a chunk of metal, which is something at least, isn't it? Now, from how it's sitting and how much it's broken, I'm relatively hopeful we've not gone far enough so that the valve has hit the piston or the other way around. And I don't recall hearing any horrible noises. I don't know, do I take it off?
Alright, so I've done a bit of reading and thinking, and we should be able to change the valve on the car, the valve spring on the car, because we're not actually putting pressure on the valve. So we need to get the valve to stay not at the bottom of the cylinder, but otherwise it doesn't need holding up with any great deal of force. So what you can do, I'm going to try, is put a bit of rope into the cylinder in order to hold and bring the cylinder up, so you're able to push against the roof of the combustion chamber and keep valves up. Then we need to compress the valve spring to be able to get the collets out, and then compress the replacement spring to get the collets back in again. But we shouldn't actually need to push on the valve there. And I've had a closer look at it, and it looks like we have two parts of spring, sorry, two large parts of spring, rather than something small that might have fallen into the engine. Alright, so I have number 4 coming up on top dead centre. Let's see if this will work. One and 4 definitely up, so let's take the rocker shaft off and see how we get on from there. You can see where the rockers have been contacting, but there's no apparent damage to the one that wasn't the one where the spring broke. Stop the valve moving more. Okay, we're at least good enough. Now we can get this out. There we go. It is a nice clean break, and I can see the spring was rusty. I should have not put it on. The valve is sitting on some rope, so we're okay. Now we'll dig out a replacement spring. We'll do the harder bit of trying to get it back on. Okay, last try manually before I try and build something. I've just seen a variation of something like this on the internet. A socket in a what's it called? Die wrench. I've chosen one that's going to fit just around the collets, which in the right place as we... Oh, but they're going to need to go a bit wider, aren't they? So I'll just let them fall. Okay, slightly larger socket. Yeah, getting there. Go. Okay, so luckily that
Replacement spring seems to have gone on fine. So I've got all the bits of the old spring, 2 bits, and you couldn't actually get the valve down. It was still being held up by the spring, so I'm not really concerned about it having contact to the piston or anything like that, and I'm sure I would have heard that if that was happening. Now, I did feel it was down on power when I drove it back from its repair assessment. I attributed that just to it being on a long hill, and but that could have been that. So I might try and find a borescope to actually look inside that cylinder before I actually run it. But otherwise, I'm just going to get the head retorque done and get this put back together, and then we do a compression test. So this should be 42 to 46 foot-pound. Okay, let's get the rocker shaft back on. Key thing here is making sure all the push rods engage. These are 24 foot-pound. So given the head had just gone a tiny bit down, extremely small amount, I'd expect the rocker gaps slightly closed up. Well, they have, but they're now a nice tight fit. Well, that one is at least. Now a nice tight fit versus being a little loose before. Yeah, so for valve adjustment, I like to use the rule of 9. So currently this valve is all the way down, so we'll be checking, that's number 4, so we're checking number 5. Which is a good fit. And I like to then stick a little dot on them to show me which ones I've checked, because I'm forever forgetting. Particularly for small chassis triumphs. These are for the early cars, that's the size 1 7/16 inch of the pulley nut. And I definitely recommend getting the right size spanner. It makes it so much easier. Be aware for you not having been damaged by someone putting mole grips on it or something in the past. Before I rebuilt the Herald engine, that's why I didn't realise why this was. I found it so awkward to turn the engine with the spanner. It's because the nut was just damaged. Okay, we're all ready to see what the compression is like on a fully rebuilt and just running engine. So the handy thing here is I've already got, there's no fuel tank, so I don't need to isolate the fuel system. So let's see what it's like. 127, 128, something like that. $130. $130. $130. That's good to know that they're consistent after a rebuild, and that so that one's a bit down relatively, but you know, by a couple of psi. So I'm not going to be too worried. And that might even be 130, like 132 or something. So I get the plugs back in, and then we'll have a look at the Spitfire, because that's really why I wanted to do this. Is to see the engine, is to see what the 500-mile-old engine reads, and compare that with the who knows engine on the Spitfire. Okay, so we've measured the Herald, which is over here, and the reason I really wanted to do that was because then I want to measure the Spitfire. Now the gauges, I mean, they're not precision instruments. They are, you know, it's a, what was it, 10, 20, 30 quid off eBay, that sort of level of quality. So did it really measure exactly 130 psi? I don't know, but the comparative reading is what is important. So if you're measuring your cylinders on one car, you're looking for, you know, how close are they to one another. So the measurement on a fresh engine versus one on a who knows how old engine is actually quite interesting, because it's going to tell us the 130 psi that the Herald just measured is kind of what the Spitfire could be. So that's going to give me a read on relatively how worn it is. And I suspect number 3 is still going to be a bit low, because it was the last time. Anyway, I'll get the bonnet up and we'll have a look. Okay, so the plugs are out and looking alright. The oil around them but not on them. Could really do with getting a longer belt for this car, because I have to take it off to be able to get to plug 1. Fuel cut off, and let's go. I kind of want to do this because I'm interested, but I also kind of don't, because I suspect it's going to give me. It's a question I don't want to ask. It's 125, so. that one's rather low though, 110. And 3 was low last time I did this. That's also 110. And 120 for number 1, as they're quite inconsistent, unfortunately. Let's do the put some oil in the cylinder check. That's 150 wet. We've only got to like 122 on that cylinder, 144 maybe, and like 125 for 1. So I told you it was a question I probably didn't want to ask. Those measurements for the Spitfire, independent of what the comparison with the Herald is, indicate the engine is, as I suspected, getting quite tired. I think it's probably just on the borderline where we can cope with still running it. Can't take it apart right now. That needs to go and get repaired, and I got to bring the GT6 in, so I need this to be able to go in that garage. And to be honest, it's probably still alright running around locally for a mile or two, but it's not far off. It's going to need, I think I'm going to need to take the engine out, which I knew was likely to be the case. Anyway, this is going to be the last you'll see of the Herald for a while. Hopefully, the next time it's on video, it will just be because it's back, it's finished, it's shiny, all the accident done, which is repaired, it's painted. And yeah, I'm hoping to actually get on to GT6 work. But what remains now is to say thanks for watching, commenting, subscribing, and I will see you next time.